Okay, welcome back to the kitchen. This week I'm going to be making a no-bake pumpkin cheesecake. You saw me cutting up the butter, which we need 5 tablespoons of. So I measured it by counting the little notches on the butter package. So each of these larger notches at the bottom that I'm pointing to with my ring finger, that is 1 tablespoon. So I just counted out 5 of those notches. And we need our butter melted. So I put this in the microwave for 30 seconds on high, and then another about 15 seconds until it was almost melted. And then once you swirl it around, any tiny little last bits that aren't quite melted will melt. Also, I needed to heat up the cream cheese in the microwave, so that's going to be easier to blend. So I put this in for 30 seconds on high. Alright, so this recipe comes from a blog, and I will put the link to that down below in the description. Alright, so first they call for 30 graham crackers, which you're supposed to crush in a food processor, and this is for the crust. Now I thought it'd just be a lot easier to buy the graham cracker crumbs that are already crushed up for you. But the problem is that I now have to figure out how much of that is equal to 30 graham crackers. So we may be doing a bit of guesswork. We need to blend together our crushed graham crackers with our melted butter and 2 tablespoons of sugar. The recipe calls for doing that in a food processor, which we don't have, which is one reason why I bought the crushed crackers. So I'm going to be blending them together with my pastry cutter. So this is called a pastry cutter. You can use it for blending things for certain recipes. Some people also use it to make meatloaf and such. So I'm just going to do it right in this container. And this recipe calls for using a springform pan, which if you don't know what that is, I will insert a picture of it into the video here. And the benefit of using a springform pan is that the sides actually pop off after it's baked, which means you can display the sides of the cake, and you can see the layering of the crust and then the cheesecake part, and then whatever topping you put on top of that. But we're going to be doing it in this because I don't have a springform pan, and I don't really care about being able to pop the sides off. I think it's going to taste just as good anyway, and it is a little bit translucent, so you'll still be able to see. Oh, okay, so I just remembered that this box says right on here, makes 3 9-inch pie crusts. So I'm just going to use 1/3 of what's in this bag. Okay, and I'm just going to point this out because a lot of times when I bake with a group here at the library, cook or bake here with a group at the library, you know, back when we still used to do that in person, I would notice that some of my young helpers would really not close packages very well, and then stuff goes stale. So you might notice that I rolled this down really tightly, and then I put a band on it to keep it from unrolling, and now I'm going to put it back in the original box. And that will keep it fresh for next time we want to use these. Mind you, that's not all of my young fellow cooks, but for some of them, it is true. They will not close things correctly. Alright, now we need our 2 tablespoons of sugar. And when the recipe just says sugar, that's it. It means this white granulated sugar. Now later in the recipe, when we make the filling, we're going to be using regular sugar and brown sugar. But for now, we just need this. Right. So, a bit of a problem. Our sugar has started to solidify a bit, so I'm just going to crush that up. Alright, so I have my spoon filled, and I'm going to use the back of this knife to level off the sugar to make sure it's even on top. And having your measurements be accurate is a lot more important in baking than it is in cooking usually, because with baking it's more of a precise chemical reaction usually that you need in order order to keep your baked goods from coming out rather funny or bad. So do level it off so you make sure you have the right amount. Alright, so at this point, if you were following the recipe and you had a food processor, you would actually be putting all this into your food processor and pulsing it. But in this case, I'm going to use my little handy dandy pastry cutter. And you might notice it doesn't necessarily get into the corners that well. So every once in a while, I'm just going to go in with this knife and just push stuff out of the corners and into the middle. Okay, so you're supposed to blend it until it's incorporated, which I think it looks well incorporated. And now we're supposed to press it into the bottom of our pan and a little ways up the sides. Okay, so just get all this off so we don't waste it. Alright, so to press this in, I've decided to use this spatula. So I'm just going to press it down. So now we need to put this into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes so that it can get nice and firm. And I might be a bit impatient, so I'm going to put it in the freezer. Okay, now for the filling. So we need in a large bowl, which I think this is going to be large enough, we're going to beat our cream cheese, brown sugar, and regular sugar until it's creamy. Alright, so I just dug the cup down in there until it was full and a little bit over full, because now I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to level the top. So I'm just running my knife over the top of the cup. And you might be able to see, I'm trying to show you without spilling it everywhere. You can see that the extra sugar is just spilling back into the bag. Right, and now it's nice and level. You might notice I keep my brown sugar rolled up really tight with the rubber band and inside a bag with the air squeezed out of it. That's because if you let air get to your sugar, whether it's brown sugar or less so with your white sugar, but it can still happen with both types. It will get as hard as a rock if it's exposed to too much air, and then it's really hard to use. So that's probably why the white sugar started getting those clumps in it, because I probably didn't have the bag have quite all the air squeezed out of that bag. Okay, now for brown sugar is different from most other dry ingredients because you actually have to pack it in. For flour or a regular sugar, you don't pack it in. You just lightly spoon it in or scoop it into your measuring cup and then level it off. But with brown sugar, you actually have to pack it in. So what I'm doing is I'm filling up my cup inside the bag, and then I'm squeezing the brown sugar down into the cup through the bag so I don't get my hands all covered in sugar. So now you see it's mounted in there nice and tight, and now we have to level it off. So I'm going to do that down in the bag so we don't make a big mess, and just, okay, so now it's level. And then I always like this part because it comes out just like a little sandcastle. Some people like to just make a huge mess when they cook and then clean it all up at the end, but I like to keep a clean kitchen as I go, so I like to put stuff away when I'm done with it right away. So now we're going to beat all this together until it's creamy. I have my little hand mixer here. Alright, so sorry I don't have a stand to show you as it's in progress, but you can see so far how it looks. You can also see there's a bunch of bits of butter and sugar and stuff stuck to the side of the bowl. So we don't want that. We want it to all get blended in evenly. So I'm going to take my spatula, just just gonna rest this here for a second. I'm gonna take my spatula and scrape it around the inside of the bowl. Okay. So you can see before and after. I just scraped the sides clean. So now we're gonna blend some more after I scrape off the spatula itself. Alright, so they said you only need to blend it till it's creamy, and it looks creamy to me, so I think we're good to go. And now we're going to add in our pumpkin, vanilla, and pumpkin spice, and then beat it again until it's completely blended. Alright, so as for pumpkin, it's calling for one 15-ounce can. And if you're buying this, just make sure you look for the one that says 100% pure pumpkin, because they also sell something called pumpkin pie mix, which can come in a can that looks really similar to this. And the pumpkin pie mix isn't just pureed pumpkin. It includes a bunch of other spices and things to make pumpkin pie making easier. So, and we're already adding spices and other things, so you just want the pure pumpkin for this. Right, next we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And actually same thing for this, check and make sure it says pure vanilla extract. If it says vanilla flavoring, that means it's like an artificial flavoring, it's not real vanilla. Some people might not notice the difference or care, but I just think it's better to get the real vanilla. And also some vanilla extracts, if you check the ingredients, they'll include like corn syrup. So I don't buy it if it says that. I only buy the one that says it's the 100% pure vanilla, which is just, so that's how they actually make it, is they take a whole vanilla bean and they soak it in alcohol, and then that makes the extract, and then they mix it with some water to sell it. Alright, and then we need 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. Here's my tablespoon. This was my teaspoon. You can see they are different, so just be sure not to get those mixed up. Tablespoon, they put a B in it. That's how you can tell the difference. This one just says TSP for teaspoon. This one's a tablespoon. Pumpkin pie spice is really just the spices I showed you at the beginning of the video. So allspice, cinnamon, ginger, and also nutmeg. Unfortunately, we don't have any nutmeg, so I'm just going to mix these 3. I thought I had pumpkin pie spice in the cart, but somehow it's not here. So anyways, this will do. So I'm going to do more cinnamon than the other ingredients, just because I know from experience that they usually call for more cinnamon than the others. I think the allspice is probably just a more powerful spice, so you don't need as much of it, because most recipes only call for just a little bit of that. And then the ginger, whoa, okay, yeah, ginger's kind of powerful. Might have been too much, but oh well. And then we'll top it off with some more cinnamon. And I don't really care if this is leveled off or not, just because I feel that you can't really go wrong with a little extra cinnamon. So I'm just going to mound it up a bit. Alright, now I'm going to beat this until it's fully blended. And you can see it's beautiful. So I'm going to scrape off my beaters and put them in the sink. And then our next step is to whip up our heavy whipping cream. Okay, I can give you my official opinion. It's definitely worth licking the beaters for this one. This is really good. And there's no eggs in it, so you don't have to worry about salmonella. Alright, so I've had my bowl and my beaters and my whipping cream in the refrigerator, because whipped cream beats up a lot easier and faster if you have cold ingredients and cold tools to start. So, and they're calling for 16 ounces of heavy whipping cream. So this is a pint, 2 cups in a pint. 1 cup equals 8 ounces, so this whole thing is 16 ounces. Okay, so we're going to beat this until stiff peaks form. So stiff peaks is when you lift up your beaters, the liquid that you're beating is going to stand up like a little mountain, and the tip isn't going to fall over. It's going to stay like a straight peak, pretty much. So I'll show you an example when we get to that point. Alright, so I just want to show you what it looks like so far. We're not at soft peaks or stiff peaks left, but you can see it's more frothy, definitely, than it was before. So we're getting close to soft peaks here. Alright, so you can see if I lift up the beaters, it does form these little mountain peaks, but they just sort of flop over and start to meld back into the mix. So that's still soft peaks. So we're going for stiff peaks, so we're going to keep going for just a little bit longer. Alright, so now you can see this mix is getting really fluffy, and when I lift up, it doesn't even really form peaks because it's so thick, but the bits that I can manage to lift up with the beaters, they just stay straight up. So this is stiff peaks. You don't want to go much further than this because you're going to start getting butter. So yeah, don't go further than this. But I do like my whipped cream to be pretty thick, so I go almost to butter stage sometimes. So this is definitely excellent. Alright, so what the recipe calls for is to fold the pumpkin mixture into the whipped cream mixture. So folding is a very, very careful way of mixing, which I'm going to show you. And you use folding when you have some very fluffy, light mixtures and you don't want to accidentally stir the air right out of them. We want these to stay fluffy. So if we were just to jump in there with a spoon and stir as hard as we can, we would probably knock out a lot of the air bubbles that are causing this nice lovely fluffiness, which we want to keep. Okay, so I hope you can see this pretty well. So we're going to scrape the spatula along the side edge of the bowl like this, and then when you get halfway around the bowl, you're going to cut through the middle, take the part that you just traced around and flip it over. So I'm going to trace around the outside of the bowl with the spatula and then cut through the middle. Then take this half that I just traced around and just fold it over that half. Now we're going to trace around the other side of the bowl, which keeps moving. Cut through the middle and fold that half over. Okay, so basically you're just scraping around the edge, cutting through the middle, and then folding one half of the mixture on top of the other half. So it's just a way of mixing that is going to preserve the fluffiness of the mixture. So I'm going to try and keep showing you. So around, through the middle, and fold over. Around, through the middle, and fold over. Alright, I think this is good. So now we're going to put this on top of our crust. Uh-oh. Does this pan look too tiny for all this fluffy stuff? Hopefully it fits. If not, I might be making some separate little pumpkin pudding cups out of what's left. Yeah, that's getting pretty darn fluffy there. Alright, that's about as full as I can go and still put the lid on without squashing the top of it. because this does have a lid that goes over it, and we definitely don't want to put it in the fridge uncovered. You gotta cover it when you put it in. So, looks like we're going for mini pumpkin pudding cups. Alright, now as you can see, I was going for a clean presentation, but of course I slopped it all over the place. So probably because I should have switched to a smaller spoon instead of trying to do this with a spatula. So now I'm just going to take this little bit of paper towel and just try to clean up the edges of the serving cups a bit so it has a nice presentation. So if I was serving these at some sort of special event, I would probably just make an extra batch of whipped cream with sugar this time, and just put it on top of each pudding cup, just to hide the fact that I did get it slopped around the edge of the cups a bit. That's definitely an improvement. Alright, so I'm going to put all our little pudding cups into the refrigerator, and see you tomorrow. Alright, welcome back to the kitchen. Our dessert is finished. I think it turned out really nice looking. And now I'm just going to be putting some of it on plates to share with everybody. Alright, so I got these all served up. It's really delicious. I already tried it. One of the downsides of using the kind of pan that I used instead of a springform pan is that it does make it a little harder to serve. You can see I really had to work at it to get the pieces out of there. And they turned out looking not really shaped like a piece of cake, but more shaped kind of like pudding. So it's not exactly as firm as you would expect from your usual cheesecake. The recipe author does recommend, if you have that issue, to put your cake pan in the freezer for a short time before you serve it. So I might try that next time. If I do end up getting a springform pan, I would probably try making it in that next time, just because it would make it easier to serve. But other than that, I think this turned out really great. It was really easy to make, and it would be great to bring along to Thanksgiving or Christmas celebration or whatever. So I hope you had fun in the kitchen, and see you again next week. Bye!